Twitter has been in the news lately after its tumultuous takeover by billionaire Elon Musk. In just a short time, thousands of its employees have quit or been laid off. Its policies, culture, and reputation have fallen into limbo. And many, both on the platform and off, are wondering, where does it go from here? Will Twitter actually be a bigger, better, and more profitable platform than it was before? Elon Musk is banking on that answer being a yes. Experts have pointed out that the entrepreneur is leaning into the same leadership style he employed when building out SpaceX and Tesla. However, this time it's a much different playing field.
With unemployment so low now, they can afford to tell Elon Musk, yeah, I'll take your 3 months of severance and walk out the door. Good luck to you. I don't need to live in this kind of stultifying work environment.
That's William D. Cohan, a financial journalist and the author of Power Failure: The Rise and Fall of an American Icon. There's no arguing that Twitter is at a defining moment right now. Today, it's a well-recognized name in the social media landscape, but like many before it, this power and prominence can disappear in a flash. Cohan says no company is guaranteed eternal survival. A series of bad decisions by leadership can break a company. Take Sears, for instance, which started in 1893. At one point, it was the Amazon and Walmart of its day. In 1969, 2/3 of Americans shopped at Sears, and its sales accounted for 1% of the total U.S. economy. Today, the brand is non-existent, down from 3,500 locations at its peak to just about 20 stores remaining. Looking back, it failed to keep up with e-commerce, modern brands, and made a series of bad decisions. Even Jeff Bezos, the CEO and founder of Amazon, understands this cycle of business.
Jeff Bezos famously told the Amazon workforce that it's just a matter of time before Amazon disappears, and it's our job to keep that as far out in the future as possible. That's what this book is all about. It's about how a once great company, despite seeming totally invincible, no company seemed more invincible than GE. I mean, a AAA credit rating. Not even Apple has a AAA credit rating. It may be worth $2.5 trillion. It seems totally invincible. Amazon seems totally invincible. I think, last year Facebook seemed totally invincible, and then it went all meta on us and seems highly invincible at this point.
In the case of General Electric, it was a dominant force in American innovation for almost 100 years. It formed in 1892, the product of a merger between two large companies in the sector, Thomas Edison's Edison Electric and Thomson-Houston Electric, which was led by businessman Charles Cohan,
who taken over his uncle's shoe company in Lynn, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. He bought another company that had gone bankrupt, started by two teachers from a Philadelphia high school, that created an electric dynamo company that competed against Edison's. And Charles Cohan was actually a fabulous operator, and he made his company a more successful and more valuable than Edison's company. And basically the venture capitalists, including J.P. Morgan and Henry Villard, that had taken over Edison's company, and Charles Cohan and his venture capitalists up in Boston, decided to merge the two companies together in 1892 against the wishes of Thomas Edison. So everybody thinks that Thomas Edison was the creator of GE, and actually he was against the creation of GE. Now, that's the part of the mythology that nobody ever talks about, but I found fascinating.
After the merger, Thomas Edison left the business and Cohan took over as CEO. For the next 20 years, he expanded GE's ventures and grew its market share from 35 million to 184 million. Over the next several decades, under various leaders, GE continued to diversify its portfolio, dipping its toes into several different sectors other than electric.
GE was the biggest manufacturer of jet engines and the most technologically advanced jet engines still to this day. It had a huge business in major appliances. It had GE Capital, the finance business, GE Medical Equipment Manufacturing, course, it owned NBC for a long period of time. It's gotten into a plethora of many, many other businesses that sort of come and go. It made, people don't realize this, it made huge and powerful locomotive engines for a long period of time.
One of the leaders who led the company to its peak was a man named Jack Welch. He was the CEO from 1981 to 2001, and during this time grew GE's worth from $12 billion to around $650 billion. Cohan spent many hours interviewing Welch and characterizes him as a decisive and bold leader, but someone who also listened to different viewpoints.
He was completely infatuated with what became GE Capital. He loved, GE then had a AAA credit rating, and he loved arbitraging GE's AAA credit rating to borrow very cheaply, basically at the same rate that the U.S. government could borrow, and then to lend that money out to other people who wanted it at much higher rates of interest, including getting warrants in their companies, equity positions in their companies, and, grew GE Capital into a financial services behemoth that was generating 50% of GE's earnings by the time Jeff Immelt took over, or thereabouts, 50%. And so, he took something that was worth $12 billion and made it worth $650 billion. That's a fairly amazing accomplishment along the lines of what Tim Cook has done at Apple, taking it over from Steve Jobs when it was worth $300 billion, and now it's worth $2.5 trillion. So the selection of the CEO makes a big difference in the fate of a company.
Following Jack Welch was Jeff Immelt, who led GE from 2001 to 2017. While he guided the company through the fallout from 9/11 and the 2008 financial collapse, there are many critics of his leadership style and strategy.
I don't think he was as open-minded. Once he made a decision, that was kind of it. And his view was either, get on board or get out, sort of like what we've been hearing out of Elon Musk and Twitter recently. And you can see that can be very polarizing and can often result in people saying, either the hell with this, I'm out of here, or, in the case of Jeff Immelt, he ended up firing people who disagreed with him. And that, puts people off balance. They don't feel quite as secure. They don't feel quite as willing to share bad news. And, if you're the CEO, you need to hear the bad news. You need to know exactly what's going on. You need to know where the trouble spots are so that you can fix them. And I don't think, Jeff tried to convince me over and over again that he was willing to do that and that he kept the best people around it. But, as the more I dug into it, and I get into this in the book, that's just not true. I'm sorry to say, it's just not true.
During Immelt's reign, GE lost many of its most talented people. In the wake of this shift, Cohan says the business ultimately lost focus and failed to stay ahead of competitors. Earlier this fall, GE announced that it plans to downsize its offices in Boston and is splitting up into 3 separate ventures: healthcare, aviation, and energy.
At its peak, GE was worth $650 billion. Now it's worth about $90 billion, which is not nothing, obviously. Not 650, but not nothing. And then each of these 3 parts, I think one of the reasons they're splitting up is because they think that the sum of the parts will be worth more than the way GE was trading together. The whole thing is a rather sad denouement. I think if Jack Welch were still alive, this would probably kill him. But times change, leadership, CEOs have different points of view, and just like elections have consequences, CEOs have consequences, and we're seeing that in real time. We can see in the GE story that even once invincible companies can get themselves into trouble and can incredibly disappear. So I think that's a cautionary tale for investors, for creditors, for employees, for management teams. This is the kind of story that should be taught at Harvard Business School. This should be a case study. They had all the case studies about GE on the way up, but they don't have any case studies about GE on the way down. And this should be what business school students are taught in this country.
To learn more about this topic and our guest, William D. Cohan, visit viewpointsradio.org. Also, check out his new book, Power Failure: The Rise and Fall of an American Icon, now available online and in bookstores. This segment was written and produced by Amira Zaveri. I'm Gary Price. Coming up on Viewpoints.
We can kind of tell you maybe when a flood will be somewhere, but we can't forecast sort of the change of the landscape yet.
Understanding changing weather extremes amidst climate change. Then,
what are you dreading? It's not Christmas or Hanukkah or New Year's or Thanksgiving. You're dreading what you feel and why.
If you don't like the holidays, you're not alone. But there may be a deeper reason behind this feeling. I'm Marty Peterson.
And I'm Gary Price. These stories in depth on your public affairs magazine, Viewpoints.
And that's Viewpoints for this week. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to learn more about upcoming shows and find a library of past programs on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Plus, you'll always find previous segments and more information about our guests at viewpointsradio.org. Join us again next week for another edition of Viewpoints.